My name is Chris, and today we're taking a look at the CoolGeek VS-01 vertical record player. Welcome to the Vinyl Attack. As the popularity of turntables surprisingly continues to rise, companies are trying to find new and exciting ideas, or gimmicks perhaps, to make their products stand out in an ever-increasingly saturated market. While the idea of a vertical turntable isn't new by any means, there are a host of people, particularly young people, who haven't seen one and may find them attractive. Enter CoolGeek and their VS-01 record player. The VS-01 or 01, or maybe just 1 as it probably should be pronounced mathematically, and I will call it that for the remainder of this video, is a vertical turntable, built-in amplifier, speaker, and Bluetooth combo unit not unlike the Stackstone Savage I reviewed not long ago, outside of the vertical part, of course. Ranging in price from $899 to $1,099 US on their official website, and $899 US for the two colors currently available on Amazon, the VS-01 isn't what I would call cheap. It's certainly not what I would call entry-level, so in that regard, I feel it caters to a particular group. This will be worth bearing in mind as we move further throughout the review. Coming in a total of 4 colors at the present, all 4 of which are available on CoolGeek's own website, and 2 of the 4 currently on Amazon, I was sent the Viridian Green for review. Right out of the oversized box, you'll note that this unit has some heft to it. Coming in at over 16 pounds, it certainly has the feel of a product that has some engineering forethought and quality parts in the build. On the front, you'll find a very clean retro vibe with nothing more than a throwback style grille, a multi-function standby volume selector knob, and the tone arm. Of course, just above this finely finished base is the belle of the ball, the vertical platter, itself in a mixed green swirl. Around the back are 3 simple flat toggle switches that select the power, line output, and playback speed, those being 33 1/3 and 45 RPM. There are also 2 very small inset screws next to the line-out connectors that I would imagine are to fine-tune the playback speed. I can't say for certain because I never tried to adjust them. The playback speed seemed fine, if not fluctuating, but more on that later, and is the problem with all vertical turntables, there's no good way to check the playback speed without a strobe, a tool I do not currently have at my disposal. Inside the aforementioned giant box, and this thing really was big, you'll find all the necessary information and accessories to get the VS-01 up and running in minutes. It has a small instruction manual that gets the job done, but I feel it could have gone a bit more in depth on the finer points of adjustment you might need to get the most out of this unit. For example, while the claims of an adjustable needle pressure, their phrasing not mine, were mentioned in the marketing, upon checking the included printed manual, the almost overbearing amount of website information, and watching the official CoolGeek YouTube instructional video that you can reach via QR code, I found no information on how to adjust said pressure. It was only after a little tinkering that I figured out the hex screw above the spring toward the base of the tone arm can be used to calibrate the downforce. Of course, there still isn't a way to measure said pressure, if you will, with this being a vertical table, so you'll just have to fine-tune it until you feel comfortable. I was happy with the performance once I managed to get the stylus to stop skipping every time I lowered the tone arm, if lowered is the right verb here. A problem that occurred every time and with an alarming skip until I fixed it. After the brief setup and thorough once-over of the upscale fit and finish of the unit, and it really is well put together, I started pulling out records to play in anticipation of a stylish turntable with which I could easily move about the house to listen to my collection. Then I started to play them. While the VS-01 has a very nice build quality and exterior, it has one glaring issue. It doesn't sound very good. Moving through the first few plays of Van Halen's classic 1984, Skid Row's self-titled debut, and John Coltrane's A Love Supreme, the VS-01 displayed overly harsh highs that were bordering on distortion at times, with an unwelcome dose of sibilance. Using a cork platter mat did seem to help reduce these unpleasant traits, but it was only marginal at best and still didn't make the listening experience all that great. The mids and highs coming from the 2 2-inch 5-watt forward-facing speakers just didn't produce enough warmth to override the bright top end. The signature 3-inch 30-watt heavy bass unit, as it's called, likewise couldn't produce enough low-end oomph to round out the unreasonably harsh highs, and the unit overall simply lacked depth and balance. If I've ever found a need for tone controls on a product, it was on the VS-01. Perhaps this is something you can keep in mind for future iterations. I wish I could say that these were the only issues I had, but I'm afraid they weren't. In a presentation just as vexing as the bright sound, the wow and flutter performance were noticeable even on musical parts that didn't contain sustained notes. If you'll bear with me for a few seconds, I have a mildly unpleasant yet extremely helpful tone from my Ultimate Analog Test LP to illustrate this point. I'll keep it brief for the sake of any pets that may be nearby. Yeah, that's not good. If you're not familiar with wow and flutter, you're hearing a prime example of what it should not be. That undulating change in pitch should instead be a steady flow of sound. Unfortunately, that's just not the case here. Thankfully, that is the worst of it, if not the last of it. In the minor quibble category, if such one exists, I was a little thrown by the overall movement of the tone arm assembly. I assume that it moves this way to help to reduce vibrations due to the unit's all-in-one nature. That said, it didn't inspire a great deal of confidence and it didn't help with the tone arm operation. With the whole assembly prone to movement, I found it a bit trickier than I should have to lower it, a feat which is already foreign due to its vertical nature. The threads on the spindle were a bit aggressive for my liking as well, but that may be a personal grievance. I'm sure no real long-term damage would happen to your records with just a bit of care, but after a couple of visits from John Jameson and his sons, my particular placement of said records might be diminished and I may carve up the inside of the spindle hole. Your mileage may vary. There were little things like the claim the unit will automatically stop spinning when the stylus reaches the center. Spoiler, it didn't. Online photos showing the unit with an Ortophone cartridge attached, while my unit arrived with the Audio-Technica 3600L and the felt mat I saw in the instructional videos that didn't come in the mega box I received. But I honestly don't care about those things. You may, however, so I mention them all the same. Lastly, and this is certainly a personal note, the method of operation just didn't vibe with me. You power the unit on in the back, yet you need to long press the volume selector knob on the front to start the unit to spin. It will give you a positive audio cue to let you know what's happening.
Power on, phono mode.
This is nice with no readouts of any kind, and from there you can single press the knob to start and stop the unit at will. There's nothing wrong with this, but I guess I'm just confused by its unnecessary procedure. I do care about the build quality, however, and this is where the unit shined. The switches feel good when flipping them and in their finish. The faux leather wrap has a nice texture and consistent color. The acrylic platter was not only nice to look at, but hefty and perfectly smooth. The matte metal finishes are right up my alley, although they do collect fingerprints, and I dig the retro vibe as well. The VS-01 was so close to me wanting to use it again and again, but it just came down to that sound. It was unenjoyable enough that I just wanted to go play records on my main system instead. Yes, there are outputs on the back that would certainly sound better when played through my main stereo, but that sort of defeats the purpose here. A self-contained, all-in-one unit should sound good on its own. That is, after all, how it's marketed. Throughout all of this, though, I'd have to say my main concern is for the uninitiated in turntables. When you see something that looks this nice, priced at this level, you would have expectations of a high-quality sound, and you should. But after hearing the VS-01 and not knowing any better, a person might seriously consider skipping the vinyl hobby altogether if they think this is what they'll get for their money, and that would be a shame. But if you're a seasoned collector who's looking for a conversation piece, a stylish desktop embellishment, or just a fancy tabletop trinket who knows what they're getting into, then the CoolGeek VS-01 is more than likely for you. But at $900, you want to make sure that you have the disposable cash available to justify its good looks, because in the end, that's all you'll have here.